it happened.
Yes, so certainly that the book that you wrote on unified star schema, and you developed that with Bill Inman. That was a fantastic book. It certainly changed the way a lot of people saw and built those models. I know there are several people within South Africa that have changed that approach. Craig, and I just want to check with you. I know Paul Grobler, I don't know if you guys have changed or using the unified star schema.
So Paul has introduced it here at Mediclinic, but I don't think we've started using it yet.
Okay.
They're doing some modeling for us, and I think it's something they're looking to introduce.
Okay. I'd heard something about it going to Mediclinic. So yeah, there's been a few people we've spoken to that have started to adopt that. So Franesco's the man who came up with the idea. And so if you'd like to get his book, that's great. And I know we've had 1 or 2 webinars on it, so that would be great as well. So guys, I know Franesco would love to have questions and interactions. So I'll be monitoring the chat box, but you can also please put up your hand, raise your hand, and we'll try to allocate people when appropriate or when Franesco believes it's the right time. Franesco, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. It's very nice to see that this is a very relaxed place. It looks like to be a meeting with beer among friends. That's really the vibe that I'm breathing here, which is really perfect to me because especially for this topic that I'm bringing today, because it's a topic that now we all need to dive deep into large language models and artificial intelligence, but many of us don't have this background, and I'm definitely one of them. So there may be people in this call who know much more than me about this topic. The point here is that I'm not like presenting an absolute truth. I'm just sharing some thoughts based on my knowledge on the other side of the spectrum, which is the traditional business intelligence and SQL language and queries. So somehow I'm more experienced definitely in that. So it's good when we are putting our synergies together, because I really believe that there is a lot of work to be done here.
Fantastic. And Remco has joined us, so we're waiting patiently for his hand to go up.
Okay, now that Remco is in, we are ready to show the slides.
It feels like a lot of weight on my shoulder, guys, but I'm going to enjoy this one. No worries.
Thanks for joining. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, I guess.
Yeah, that would be great. Excellent.
Okay. So SQL with LLMs, chat with your data. I built this image with generative AI. Initially, I had a girl speaking with a robot, and then I thought it was more opportune to put a guy. Otherwise, people would say, "Oh, why a girl?" Okay, I'm just kidding. So this presentation is about writing SQL with the help of large language models. You know that not only SQL, but especially an idea that LLMs can help with the writing code in general. It's one of the hot topics. So companies are saying we will fire all our employees because we have large language models, AI. And at the moment, it doesn't seem to be true. It may happen in the future, but it's not so obvious. So here I'm showing some optimism, but also skepticism. The two things need to go together. I'm saying it will work eventually, but we need to make it happen. It's a job that we need to do together. So here it is. So about me, many people know me not because I'm known, but because I've presented so many times that I'm somehow showing again to places like it's happening here with Dama, South Africa. I work in the data analytics, but I like to say that I work in the last mile. So many people are, for example, data modelers for a data warehouse, can be data vault or something else. And I don't call that the last mile. The last mile is really after the data warehouse, downstream of it, people need to have access to data. And the perception is that data warehouse is giving all the data to the users, But the reality is not exactly like that. Downstream of a data warehouse, there is always some additional coding, some additional work to be done. Even there are products like Alteryx, which are ETL tools that are basically for business users. So that shows that there is a need downstream of a data warehouse to continue transforming your data because it's probably not fully ready to use. So I've always done this, enabling the business users. And now I'm saying these things that I was doing in the traditional business intelligence, why not apply to large language models? Because trust me, there is really the need for that. So the question is, can we chat with our database today? Database meaning data warehouse. What is your experience? So this is a first moment where I would already stop myself and collect the opinion of the participants. Have you guys tried to speak with LLMs, connect an LLM to a database, or passing some parameters, some metadata? What is your experience? Is it working? Is it gonna work? Is it not gonna work? I would like to hear from you. Who is coming first?
I can go.
Kick it off.
So, I mean, my first engagement was very interesting, and that was with Power BI when we started with the Q&A, and we started bringing Thesaurus into the BI, and you could talk to Power BI, and it would build a visualization for you. Now, that certainly wasn't the LLM; it was predating the LLMs. And certainly now what I've seen in terms of giving an LLM a CSV file and asking it to draw a graph, that's the way I've been working. I haven't been working with it, but I've been testing it and trying to do it. It was very interesting to work with Remco on trying to build a data model or an ontology for using an LLM, which is also quite interesting. So that in itself is developing. There are some limitations, but it's nice to be able to look at the main business concepts that you have within a industry or whatever that may be, and to be able to just start the thinking process, especially sometimes when you don't always have the skills within that area. Some people go to reference models, other people go, and ChatGPT seems to be a nice way of finding in between. So,
Okay.
Okay,
so thank you for your feedback. Who was next? I think
Michael.
Michael. If you're speaking, you're muted.
Sorry, Michael, are you there?
He's playing with the microphone.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's on and off, so it seems that his audio is not working.
Okay.
So let's give some time to Michael. Probably we proceed with Remco, and then we go back to him.
Yeah, I will be very honest. I haven't played with the accessing LLMs to or GPTs to the data itself, but I've seen it been done. I know it's been done, and it isn't that hard. The only thing is the input of the data, of course, is how you get the information in there. But it shouldn't be a very, very hard task to do so. And I'm playing with LLMs or GPTs for my data modeling perspective, so not so much connecting to the data itself. That's how I was referring to. I did ontology way beyond what I was half year ago because it's going so extremely fast on all the parts. So yeah, that's basically my 2 cents for now. I'm curious to what you're going to bring.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear from you. Do you think that it's a good idea to connect, to give the credentials of your production data to LLMs?
Depends. Being a good consultant always depends, right? Now, it depends how your LLMs, or your GPT is set up. The data modeling GPT I'm working with is one which is part of ChatGPT, but it's in our own environment. The information and data is not publicly shared with anybody. And I think for data, I would assume that you're never ever going to share your data, your personal data, your company data outside your own organization. But that's something you have to be very careful about. And especially choose your LLM very, very specific. I would say DeepSeek at the moment, might not be the best one.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
So what's happening with Michael?
Can you hear me now?
Michael's got a...
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Ah, great. Yes, Michael.
But you need to unmute. We heard you, but you need to unmute yourself.
You know, right?
Michael. Yeah. Don't change anything. Don't touch anything. Go ahead.
He's gone back.
That's gonna be interesting.
Michael,
sorry about that. Yeah. No, my headset's having this problem. It sort of keeps tripping to mute on. Maybe I need to reset it, but it's fine. Sorry about that. Yeah. So for me, there are two things. Of course, right now, I've been using LLMs to try and answer questions, but the more I use it, the more I think about a more of a natural flow. So, for example, you're in a meeting with your boss, and your boss is saying, "Oh my goodness, why is the revenue down this year when we were expecting to have a bumper year?" Now, in an ideal world, you as the analyst, or even your agentic, your LLM agent should say, okay, let me try and understand the factors why the sales are not translating into revenue. Let me do a breakdown and find the cause of it. When did things start going wrong? Which month was it? And then the idea is to be able to come with a particular business thesis and then break that down into a course of actions. And then the LLM stroke agent should be able to know exactly what action to perform and the corresponding sequel. Now, even though LLMs haven't reached that point, it does mimic sort of the process which we follow as analysts to try and get the bottom of the problem. And it would be rather nice if we could actually streamline the LLMs to do that. Because if I'm asking the LLM, give me the sequel to group by month, that's nice, that's fine. But I do have some underlying understanding of how SQL works and how it uses group by, things like that. But if I just said, look, I want to see a breakdown of how sales evolved over the past 12 months, and then that's sort of a more natural question that a senior level executive would ask, and that's something which we can try and see if we can capture that to the lower level in terms of actions and tasks, and then to the LLM prompts.
Okay. I agree with this, but I would like to know, this is the ideal world.
Yes.
But the question is, have you seen it work until now?
I've seen it work to the extent that I take control of that intermediate layer. So, for example, I'm saying, okay, sales seem to have fallen. Investigate when that started, or what's happening. Have the margins decreased? Have a look at the margins, and then the LLM will come with some proposals as to, should I check this table? Should I do this? Should I do that? Or in some cases, it will just generate the sequel to say, yes, let me give you a summary of the months of the sales by month, and you can investigate further. And then it says, okay, I noticed that there's been a downtake in May. Would you like me to investigate further, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this sort of chain of thought prompting does kind of work. But ideally, in some cases, there's a lot of intermediate work which I have to do in the middle there that ideally would not want to do.
Okay, thank you. So let's move forward. Just one more person, maybe. So help me there, Howard. I cannot read this name, so I need your help.
Hi. Yeah, it's
Hi. How do you read your name?
Good. It's Libu Makonda. It's a very difficult name. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a research scientist at IBM Research in South Africa. So I actually have a team working on developing text-to-SQL models. So we are actively working on this research. There are several academic benchmarks where you can see a leaderboard of various text-to-SQL models from various companies and universities. Some using big models like ChatGPT, Gemini. Some using very small specialized models from various universities and also from IBM. So we do see that if you look at the academic benchmarks, you can get high scores, but at IBM also work with internal data sets from other business units, and you see when you start applying this to real world data sets, they do start breaking down because some of the SQL queries you want to execute are actually very complex compared to the ones you find in the academic data sets. But also speaking to what the previous speaker said about having this interactive nature. So it does work where you can refine your question and also the generated SQL to be more accurate. So yeah, we've seen it work, but it's a work in progress.
Okay. These are very polite words. Okay, just wanted to also say my opinion. I say it as a last. Thank you. Oh my God. Okay. So my experience is that okay, it's really difficult. My experience is that I see that there's a lot of desire for this, but at the moment I see failures in because okay, what he's saying is that sometimes queries are very complex. Okay, I also see humans failing that, but I never seen a human failing select from table name and just writing down a wrong table name that doesn't exist or column names that don't exist. So this is what I've seen with LLMs. I've seen really that there are the so-called hallucinations, which are really not happening at very advanced layers, advanced levels. But I see at the moment that it's totally unreliable. This is my impression. I'm not saying that it's not going to work in the future, but while I see very good results in other domains like generative AI of images, of videos, these are amazing. You say, wow, that's gonna let us all lose our job. Well, at the moment, I'm not saying that with the creation of SQL. That's my experience. In any case, we will come back to, again, an interactive session in a couple of minutes because I will have a more interesting question to ask you. So let me just go forward with the
sorry,
slides.
Francesco.
Yeah.
I put a link in the chat, and that was a case study published by Uber in terms of the number of hours that it's saving in its environment. So would I be correct that they seem to be getting it to work?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'll have a look at the link from Uber. That's interesting. The point is, yeah, if it's because I'm very specific in the piece of knowledge that that I've always been focused on, which is the writing of SQL. So in general, saving time, I agree on that. It depends if they are also being able to query a structured database, because this, and also to me, that's amazing that LLMs are really able to make a summary of a text from a book, and that's like mind-blowing. And then sometimes they fail a trivial query on two tables that need to be joined. Anyway, thank you for the link. If I miss it, because it happens when I'm doing these events, that at the end I would like to go through the chat, but then I lose all the chat, because when the event is finishing, not always I'm able to fetch the content. So in that case, I will ask you. Okay, let me move forward. So yeah, what context should we provide to our LLM? So context is the keyword. Like we are talking about the job of prompt engineer, and the prompt engineer is basically the person who is asking the question the smart way. So the way that allows really seeing the context, putting the context, and when you put the context nicely, and basically you somehow suggest how the thing should be done, that increases dramatically the chances of success. So on the left and right, I have the two cases. If you do a context poor prompt, what was our yearly revenue in the past 10 years? Now this is the text I wrote just for fun, but the LLM would say, my friend, I have no idea, tell me more. But instead, if you ask the same question and you pass like a lot of elements of context, a lot of additional metadata and other elements that are helping, and which is basically the same process that happens with a new employee in the company. The new employee is not productive from the very first day. They need to have a few days to learn, and then after that, and they are not learning the job. They are learning how to apply the job to that particular new company, new client. So it's not the learning, it's really the context in the moment when you join a new company. So that's equivalent. So someone has to tell you where is the coffee machine, where are the bathrooms, but also where is your data, your password, and give the, say in this company, the product, we call it item, and all these cultural things that are specific for a particular client, for a particular database. So yeah, this is what the context is, passing these parameters which make the difference. So, and here is back the question to you. What context would you add? So this is the second and last moment when I'm somehow sharing and collecting thoughts from you. What do you think that would be relevant to tell your LLM in order to be sure that, like your new employee, it is actually providing a proper help? What info would you give? William.
Yeah, so I think the key one is, which language am I referring to? Which country am I in? Which business am I speaking from? What is the industry? All of those kind of contexts to try and narrow it down. The other challenge is that, from my experience being all over many different companies, they speak differently. They use the same word meaning something different. And it's only, especially when you're in a cosmopolitan, I've just been come back from a nuclear power station. We've got pretty much every single country represented there. And they have different ways of spelling the same word. They have different ways of articulating it. And so my question would be, how do we get the data? So if we think about SQL moves boxes around. I want to talk about the pigeonholes and the pigeons, right? SQL will refer to a particular field. Sorry, let me get this. Will refer to a particular field, but not is precisely what is living in there, what's been living in there over the last 10 years, what's died in there. And so when it goes to collect the actual data, that data has been put in from different contexts over time. How do we address the cleaning up of this data mess to the point whereby the LLM stands a chance of being able to pull this out and making sense of it? That's my question.
Okay. Thank you very much. So yeah, the culture, the country, and the context of the business, the sector. Okay, all very good inputs. Thank you for that. So Michael was also going to say something.
So Michael has written there to say that metadata is crucial. The more metadata we place about the database, the tables, the views, the better the results that we'll get.
Yeah. Okay. Generic, but I totally agree. So now what I will do, the exercise I'm trying. Yeah.
Can I just add one other comment? You're 100% right there, Howard. The challenge that we have is that that data, when it comes with context, comes from a business process, not off a system. And so unless we capture and can translate across all the data lineage, the metadata from where that actual came, we cannot get the true context of what that data is, especially when it's being put into the same bucket from multiple business processes and contexts. So we need to up the game in terms of metadata to assist LLMs to be able to get this right.
So you're talking about metadata that should describe the business process, something like that?
Yeah, so I mean, if I have, for example, I use the word churn, can you tell me what the churn is? Right.
I can, probably an LLM can, but
yes,
it depends.
Yes, no, let me just finish. So if it comes from the sales process or from the marketing process, they both got churn. And so I need to be able to say that this data was captured, this number was captured, it's sitting in the same field, in the same database, but the people that captured it came off different business processes. And so we have to fix, previously was fine because human beings can do this kind of arithmetic and mental gymnastics. We still get it wrong, but they better at it. We need to fix that problem that we've created and get that spaghetti sorted out so that we can get this correct. Because if you're going to go and select, what I've said to guys is, look, if you're going to give the person, the business person, the option to do self-service analytics, then you need to understand that they are not going to ask you which system did it come from. They can say, okay, I'm looking for a sales system, exactly what you mentioned earlier in terms of the LLM natural language questioning. But if you haven't put that into the systems and taken it across the lineage, that it can sit in the data warehouse knowing what's what, we're going to run into problems.
Yeah, I believe this. I agree with you, and I believe this has to do with something that I also mentioned in the slides, which now I will start presenting because we are already at the 30 past. But there's a process that is important. When I'm working as a consultant and I go to a company and I work for them to help them to do data analytics, I spend a few weeks understanding their data sources and everything. And especially you can call it lineage, definitely, but when you said it's the same field, the churn, regardless if it is marketing or you said sales, I don't remember. Well, it has the same field name, yes, probably, but it would be probably physically in different tables. So you would have a table that comes from the marketing information and one that comes from the sales information. So you can call it lineage, but ultimately you need to have both columns, both fields in your data warehouse in different tables. So yeah, it's definitely all about saying more, because the word churn itself doesn't say much. So you need to, I agree that you need to give more information.
So ultimately, Francesca, the challenge is over time. We're getting it right better and better, but over time, the stuff has been stored in different places.
Yeah. So you need to make a sense of that mess. So okay, do we have more people or shall I continue?
No, we can continue.
Okay, that's great. I saw pop-ups of messages. Okay, so now I'm going to show you my slides. They are not many, so I think in 15 or 20 minutes we can make it. And I'm sharing my thoughts. These are just my thoughts. Okay, so first of all, first thing to pass is the DDL, the data definition language. So basically, it's that script that in theory you had when you created your data warehouse. It's never like just one script, because a data warehouse is evolving over time. But for each table, there is a reverse engineering that says if you had created it like all in one go, that would be the script that you would have written. So this basically says create or replace table sales, and then gives a list of columns of the table saying if it's text or date or a number. So this is essential because ultimately, as I wrote in this image that I created for the event, it's a young employee chatting with a robot, and the robot is not actually giving back the actual data. It's giving back the SQL that you should run, or the agent should run against the actual data, because this is opening to the second slide, access to your actual data. So would you give this? The question I was asking Remco before, and yeah, I agree with Remco. If you have your local installation and you trust, and depending on the LLM, yeah. But my goal here is that I would recommend skipping that. I would recommend really drawing a line. Your data is your data now, especially we have from China, we have DeepSeek. So basically it's when it comes to China, you always know that you're giving some data out and that's being copied immediately. But also, to be honest, also with our beloved social media from the US. So in general, the risk of having a leakage of data is very high. So my recommendation is to keep it as much as possible, to draw a line and to say, this is my metadata, you can have it, but this is my data, you cannot have my data. So then, one more thing is the constraints. So I've heard very often you should pass to the LLM the constraints that define how tables are joining. So alter table clients, add foreign key, client country ID, references countries of country ID. So the column country ID in the table countries. Basically, it says how to join clients and countries. The same way products and suppliers, countries and regions, sales and clients, and so on. Well, yes, these can be useful, except that in most cases they do not exist. So the constraints are a concept that was very popular in the 90s and 2000s, but then most databases today are structured like a data lake. There is the concept of schema on read. So basically, you ingest anything you can as quick as possible, and then once you read, you try to make sense of it. So basically, long story short, this is the syntax from Snowflake. But Snowflake allows declaring foreign keys, but does not allow enforcing foreign keys. So very often these keys do actually not exist. And also, even when they exist, there is another problem that is even bigger. Constraints are not the same thing as joins. So there are usually more constraints than joins. In that case, the LLM has to make its own decision, and that's a bit dangerous. Let me explain you what I mean by saying that there are more constraints than joins. Take this data model. So this is another thing you may want to pass to the LLM if it's able to understand images. So if they're able to process this image and understand how things are joining to each other. But the thing I wanted to say is that you may have you may need to specify how to join, because you may have, for example, 3 constraints. This is order headers from SAP, and this is customers, and you may want to join sold to with customer ID, but also bill to customer ID, also shipped to with customer ID. These are 3 valid constraints, but only one of them can be used as a join. So there are more constraints than joins. Different departments may prefer different joins, okay? So the sales department may be interested in joining these 2 tables via sold to, but the finance department may be interested in joining these 2 tables via the bill to. And then the logistic department, the ship to. So basically 2 tables, 3 ways of joining them. How to join? Well, this is not a thing that we can leave to statistics. We need to be in control of how 2 tables are joined, because if you want to see, I want to see the sales by country. Yeah, sales by country of what? Of the client I sold to, or the client I billed to, or the client I shipped to, because these are 3 reports which will give me 3 different results. So are LLMs able to come back with a question when multiple options exist? In general, yes, LLMs now are able to have this dialogue, fine, but do they actually do it? Or do they just go for the most probable, let's say the one that has the highest score of probability? So I'm just raising the attention, be careful when there are multiple ways of joining. Could be that the LLM is just making a choice instead of you. Things can be even more complicated. So you have really like scenarios like this. Actually, I put the pointer, laser pointer. Okay. So you may have scenario like this where you have multiple options of join across all tables. So all these dotted joins are the ones that also in Power BI you would call inactive, and somehow they can be relevant, but they are there in standby. So you need to be in control. Which join am I going to use? Okay, then aliases and multipaths. When in business intelligence, you may have a table called countries, but you may need to join it multiple times. You join it to clients, but you can also want to join it to suppliers. So in business intelligence, you are able to do this. You take the same physical table and you give it different aliases. So countries CL like a client and countries sub like supplier. So you give it a different alias and you join it in a different way. Okay, this is what you do in normal traditional business intelligence. But actually in a database with just constraints, the LLM will see them like this. So they will see again these 2 paths converging to a table. But if you do this in SQL, it fails. SQL will say you cannot use the same table twice with the same alias. So you need the LLM to be able to create aliases the same way as the BI tools do it after the manual intervention of a data expert. Okay, so what else? Definition of measures. This is very important. I'm now working with the semantic layers, and the definition of measures are the starting point, the key point of having a unique place where you define the, for example, the sales amount. So this is a database from Snowflake. It's a famous TPCH database that you have when you have Snowflake. And well, if you want to know the sales amount by each line item, how do you define it? You don't have a column called sales amount. So you have the quantity, the price, and the discount. So somehow you need the LLM to understand that these three columns need to be combined into one single expression. So it's going to be very hard because semantic layers do exist for a reason. Since the time when business object existed, you were storing this definition in one place, and there are multiple options, so it's ambiguous. It depends what you want to know from data. What is the sales amount? It could be the one quantity multiplied by price, but multiplied by 1 minus discount, because discount is in numeric format and decimal format. So that would be a formula of gross revenue. But you may also want the net revenue, because you have, strangely, you have an information of tax at the row level. So you may want to add this piece of formula. So where do you store this information? So in a semantic layer, you store it somewhere within the semantic layer. But if you ask your LLM to speak directly with your database and you want to see, I want to see the revenue of last year, the LLM should say which revenue, the gross revenue or the net revenue, and how do I calculate the net revenue? So all these things, they should be stored somewhere. I interrupt myself for a moment, not because of any reason. Yeah, because it happened to me once that I realized that I was not online anymore. So since that time, I'm making the test, am I still online? Okay.
You're still online.
That sounds good. Okay, let's move forward. So what else? Well, also the definition of dimensions is relevant. What is an employee? It depends. You can have employees, like select employee ID and name from employees, but could be the condition where valid equals 1. Okay, let me put again the pointer, which is in this context very useful. So you can be the valid equals 1. Or you could have type equals permanent, or expired date equals null, or a combination of these three. So a definition of employee is often very ambiguous. That's the whole point of repeating the exercise of conceptual modeling, also when you are creating a data warehouse, and also when you're creating reports downstream of a data warehouse. There is always this exercise of conceptual modeling to say, what is an employee, what is a client, because these definitions, they need to be stored somewhere in a data dictionary or in a place in a written documentation. So the question again is the same. Where do we store the definitions of dimensions? The ones of measures, the ones of dimensions, they need to be passed through a context to the LLMs. Otherwise, they risk to count as an employee also the ones that have valid flag equals 0, and that's definitely not correct. Then there are the column names metadata. Like if you have a table called T005T, which is it's actually a name of a table of clients in SAP. Well, SAP is very well known, so it could be that now LLMs have learned all the conversions and they know that this table is equivalent to clients. But sometimes the column names are really ununderstandable, and for a database less famous than SAP, or customized fields, for example, that are happening in every installation of SAP, well, in that case, the LLM needs to be informed that natio is a nationality, or whatever new custom column you're adding. You need to be able to pass this metadata. This is metadata information, and that is needed. Okay, plus they need to know, in general, the LLMs, customer and client, they are often the same thing, like products and part and item, they are often the same thing. So they need to know all businesses. But then, okay, that's a funny slide. How about you work in a company that has a weird business? So once I looked up weird businesses, and I found information about a company that makes edible shoes, a company that makes a potato parcel. I will read this for you. Potato parcel writes custom messages on potatoes and delivers them to the recipient of your choice. Nothing says love like a potato you can't eat because it's been written on. Okay, so if you have a business like this, you better tell your LLM what your business is. You need to pass a description of your business, because this way it has more context. Exactly like when I join a company on my first day, I can be the most experienced consultant in the world, but you have to tell me that your company writes love messages on potatoes, because if you don't tell me that, there's no way that I'm going to figure out on my own. By the way, if you're curious to know more about weird businesses, this is the URL. Okay, type of join. So what if I want to see the unsold products? So this is a query, select product name from sales, inner join product. But if you want to see also the unsold products, the one that are not in sales, you want to see the product name with 0 amount of sales. Well, we all know that instead of an inner join, you can do a right join. But how can a business user obtain this result when chatting with an LLM? So if the business user says, no, wait a moment, show me also this product number 4, which has a null or 0 in sales amount. Well, if a user understands that they want to do this, and they say to the LLM, show me also the unsold products, is the LLM capable of understanding that the inner join, this inner join should be replaced with the right join? I don't know. So it's again a thing that we should at least think about it. There's not only one way to write SQL. Then overall filters. So this happened to me when I was working at Giorgio Armani. There was a guy who told me, okay, show me the sales amount by year. That was the question. And this was a query that I was doing, let's say. And then it turns out that it was a guy working in the retail department. So he wanted, it was obvious for him to add this condition where sales type equals R, which stands for resale. So he wanted to exclude all the sales that were coming for the wholesale channel. So business users often forget to communicate this context to traditional BI developers, as I was. So they will do the same with the LLMs. So it needs to be like the reliability also comes from this. The intelligence of a consultant who says, wait a minute, have you told me everything? Like, is it the only thing I need to know? And then you go back to your data, you realize that the figures are much different from the previous results that that person had, and say numbers are dramatically different. Probably we should put a filter. This is what happens normally in every project. So LLMs will just spit out a number, and if we take that number and we trust it just like that, we are risking to have completely unreliable data. And then again, slowly changing the dimension. Type 2 is the LLM able to write a between statement in a query. I don't know if they are able to do it. And then finally, the fun trap. So this is an image that I have put in my book. I like a lot this image because there is a lady with a fan. A fun trap is a situation where one number that should appear only once is spread like a fan, because you make a join. Basically, you send an invoice of $100, and then you add to your query, I don't know, you add the email address, and that person has, I don't know, 15 email addresses. So now you have 15 times that same invoice amount. This is a fun trap. In my book, I explain how to solve it. There are different ways to do it, but can LLMs prevent this duplication of numbers? You know, this is my favorite topic. Humans, well, they were not very good at that until now. I've done this job from 2001, and in every single company that I worked, I saw fun traps. So if LLMs are learning from humans, well, it means that they will also fall into the pitfall of fun traps. And here you go. ChatGPT wrote this code. So it wrote select client, and then sum of sales amount and sum of shipment amount from sales join shipments. But this query is wrong. If you put it in your database, it will run. But because sales and shipments are in a one-to-many relationship, so one row of sales can have potentially multiple rows of shipments, If you do this join, it means that each row of sales that has multiple shipments will have an amount that gets duplicated, exactly as in this fun trap. So one row of sales, amount 100. You do it in 15 shipments, and here you go, you have 1500 instead of 100. So this is a fun trap, and the syntax is correct, what the LLM says. So you will get a number, but the semantic is wrong. It will tell you the invoice amount is 1500, instead it is only 100. So, and I did some tests just to show that if you run it, you have these numbers, but then instead the sales amount is wrong because of the fun trap. And then if you just comment out the join with shipments and you read from the same table as before, now you have different numbers. You have 500 and 1400, and instead you have 300 and 1100. So it's different numbers because of the fun trap. So basically, ChatGPT gave a SQL which was falling into the pitfall of the fun trap. So to conclude, we should pass to the LLMs a lot of additional information. Most of this information, fortunately, can be provided by the IT department because it is independent from the specific business question. What is the business of my company? Potato parcel. We send love messages on potatoes. Okay, that's always true. So until that changes, well, we prepare a text file and we give it to you so that you can tell this information to the LLM. You can, okay, let me go there. So you can say, my dear LLM, I'm uploading to you a file that contains all that metadata that is independent from my question that I'm asking right now. So all the joins between tables and then all the definitions of measures, the definitions of dimensions, what is an employee, you remember, and then all the other things that we have seen, all these slides, each of these should be somehow a piece of metadata that is inserted into this file, which is provided by the IT department. This is the key point. So a business user should say, I don't understand what I'm giving. They told me from the IT department, upload this file because this contains information on definition of measures and definition of dimensions and how to join tables. We prefer to join the sold to instead of the shipped to. That's our company standard, and so on. So basically, with all this information, you are mostly covered. But then when there is a choice to make, LLMs should ask the user. So in those cases when there is an ambiguity, like for example, show me the sales by country, but then the country is connected like this. There are two paths to arrive to countries. Then the LLM should say, okay, wait a minute, you've given me a lot of nice context in your text file, but now this is a question only between you and me. So you're telling me country. Do you mean the country of the client or the country of the supplier that has sold us the products? So the user needs to receive this question and needs to be able to say, okay, I understand the question. No, I'm talking about the country of the clients. And then as a consequence of the answer, the LLM should write a SQL that is following this path. I don't see it obvious at all. So my very first recommendation is that we should absolutely be aware that it doesn't work like that. You ask a question to the LLM and you trust it blindly. So there must be a context provided, and then beyond that, you need to have a phase of validation. So you still, as a business user, you should still share this result with someone from your IT department, someone who is a data expert, who will double check if the SQL that the LLM produced is actually a correct SQL. That's, to me, the way how we should do things. So it's time for Q&A.
I so agree with what you're saying. I think the challenge is these vendors are just selling stuff that's not deliverable. And
Which vendors? Sorry.
See.
Which vendors?
Well, it's the same story as people saying, no, we've got artificial intelligence built into our system. Yes, they may have, but what is that sending as a message to an exec? Okay, well, as this artificial intelligence is in there, therefore I don't need this, I don't need that. The selling is not selling the truth at the detailed level. Exactly what you're talking about. It has to go back to these people. You can't just say, I'm going to replace these people now. And so vendors need to stop doing that because it's just not, it's not right.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. I agree. Okay.
So
Anyone
let's ask Devo. He basically said you can't expect one LLM to solve all of these subtasks. And Devo, could you give us some background and your findings and understanding?
Yeah, I think it's I think when we move into the space of agentic AI, so you're looking at having multiple small LLMs focusing on specific tasks, and they also have reasoning components that access external tools and also reflect on what they're getting out. And sort of explain the process. And you can also get them to ask questions. And this is in contrast to one large model that does Text-to-SQL, because it just does one run over the prompt and it tries to produce the SQL query. And there are a lot of challenges that have been mentioned in this talk that are going against that notion of having one LLM, because there are different subtasks to be solved here, if we to make this a reality.
So when you say different subtasks, and thank you for this, you are working in the field, so you know better than probably most of us. So, but when it comes to asking the LLM to write a SQL, is that one task, or that even needs to be broken into subtasks?
Oh, that needs to be broken down.
Oh, come on.
For example, there's a task of schema linking. So that's basically going from the natural language query to identifying relevant tables and columns that the LLM must focus on instead of considering the entire schema. So that has the potential to improve efficiency, but also reduce errors. And once you get the SQL generated, you also want to have some components for verifying the SQL. First, the syntax, so you can use SQL parsers. But also you mentioned semantics. So does the generated SQL correspond to the intent of the natural language query? So there's a lot of NLP research that's going into the equivalence between the natural language and the generated SQL. But I'm also even speaking beyond that. Instead of just having one LLM for the SQL generation tasks, you could look at, if you have a complex query, maybe you want to break it down into subcomponents of the SQL that are executed, and you can recombine the answers of the different subcomponents into the final one. But also having this interactive, back and forth between the LLM and the user. Also, depending on what the user is. I think your last comment about asking the user questions. Am I asking a data engineer with SQL knowledge, or am I asking a business user without SQL knowledge? So, for example, the business user cannot ask, should I do the right join or not, because they won't understand what that is. But
who are we going to fire? There are companies that are
so
saying we are firing all the engineers, so we are only keeping the business users. So of course, the dialogue between the LLM and the human should be with the final user. That's why it's even more challenging, because it needs to translate the question into a business language. Do you want to see the country of the supplier, or the country of the client. I am able to do it. When I go to a client, I'm able to ask this question to a business user, but it's taking like it's a process that is taking some time. Now, if the expectation is that LLMs suddenly can let a company fire all their data engineers and all their analysts and everything because there is the LLM, well, that's not going to work. It's simply not going to work. Not in the next 10 years.
Francesco, can you see in this image over here, and this is what Ndiba is talking about, is multiple agents, almost LLMs, doing individual tasks and getting data from different places to help it deal with some of the issues that we're talking about. So it's not just one LLM. There are that's what agentic AI is about, is dedicated tasks per LLM agent, and they keep passing the results on and interacting with each other to achieve the result. That's the thinking. So like we just said, should it be a right join or a inner join? Well, one would understand that from the cardinality and the type of foreign key that you're dealing with, which is possible, especially if you look at things like ontologies, to be able to understand it. But again, it's each agent needs to be able to deal with its challenges and then bring it together as a story. And of course, talking back to the user, I agree with you.
I want to see this a Christmas party of a company with all these agents cheering for the new year. It's going to be fun. I saw there was William and Remco. There's a few people who want to ask a question.
So on my side, every time I brought on board a new employee, I always give them something that I'm working on to see what they do wrong, right, or completely different set of logic. I think there is an opportunity to learn about the hidden areas of our own minds, because we have a way of thinking, right? We may very well find by asking these questions that we get some kind of random answer that opens a door that we never thought of before. So there is that, but it's not going to answer the problem that we're looking at. It is more something that might be useful.
Remco?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, listening to what you were saying, Francesco, and also what video. Sorry, your name is very hard to pronounce, but what you were saying, right? And on the Asian stuff, I think that one, we definitely don't fire the data engineers. Well, at least not the good ones, but you can fire all the other ones. No worries. No.
But that, in any case, even without
no, but yeah. No. What I think that you'll see, I see some stuff happening. One is even a moderate data engineer can have some kind of an agent helping him to test and see if his code is working. So to improve the code, it needs to do the task it needs to do. I need to create a data engine or data pipeline to get data from A to B. I think this is the correct code. Could you please check? So I think there will be a whole development over there. The other thing, what I don't believe that a business user just go to simply says, "Ooh, I want to see this result." They never did it before, because the way it's working now, and for sure the one, Francesco, people have questions they want to answer, they want to analyze the information, and they first need to decide, okay, what do I want to see? How do I want to see it? Is there a report for it? Do I need a request for that one? And I see that as the you have the chain of thought prompting, right? You start with a simple task. I want to see something about the data in or any sales information in my region. And then it will give you, okay, I have your sales information. And then you go to the next prompt and the next. So you, on a whole chain, right, is some kind of a Q&A with your GPT and saying, okay, we start here and then going down step by step till you finally got the answer. There is no way, because also we humans don't work in that way. Brains don't work. Business users don't work. Analysts don't work that way. They say, oh, by the way, I just clicked the button and automatically I have the response. It's not going to work like that.
So you're saying that the gradual questions somehow work as a context. So you begin to a simple question and then a second question a bit more elaborated. Okay, that's a very interesting point.
And of course, when there, and that was my response on the LinkedIn post, right? I would say it will be beautiful if you can say, just like we have standard dashboards, right? To say, give me this information. I always want to see this information Monday morning. Of course, it's an automatic process. You can create it in a report. You can create it in a prompt already. You can pre-prompt it. But when you go and analyze information, it will always be like a Q&A with your LLM or GPT or whatever. It's never going to. I tried to do, and I think I presented this half a year ago, Howard, my data modeling GPT.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm way further than at the moment than I was then. But I tried to say, okay, this is my business case, provide me the data model. It wasn't working that way. So I need to give it small steps to say, this is my business case, this is what I want to see. Okay, now we got this, now this one, now this one. So in small steps, it works the best. I really don't believe in going everything in one, and especially not when you are not having a one attribute set interface or one big table where you get rid of all the joins and all the other stuff, and it could be virtual, of course. But as soon as your data is well structured, organized underneath, preferably without any joins, it will work. That's why I shared the volt speed research with you. I did some work on that one. And if you have a one attribute set interface or the one big table where everything is in, data scientists, by the way, love, of course, the one big set, that will work best.
Yeah, the actual CSV is getting better results than a dimensional model or a relational model because it's not dealing with the challenges that it faces.
Yes.
But
but the CSV is already specific. CSV is already, it has been produced by someone who was answering a specific business question. So if we could put the whole world into the CSV, that would be easy.
Sure.
We don't have joins, performance is better, but CSV was coded by someone. And if you have a slightly different question, you need to write a different code to produce a different CSV.
But there's still, Franesco, and Liz, and I'm giving it out to the group, by the way. I think there's still the question that what information, I want to know this, whatever it is, right? I want to know what kind of potato shoes I need to sell in wintertime. I don't care.
With love message or without love?
that would be the first thing would be, dear ChatGPT or GPT, what kind of questions, what kind of information do I need to answer this question? And it will come to you. Oh, you need this information, this information, this information, this information. Do we have this information? Yeah, we have this information. It looks like we're having it here, 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 here. And then slowly try to combine the information. And yes, metadata is key. And if you have a good, properly modeled information underneath, it will work better. And yes, everything in one big CSV is the best way, because then you know that you don't have any join issues and the performance will be good. It takes small steps.
Okay, Rome wasn't built in a day. We have Jonah. He has raised a hand. Johan.
Hi, can you guys hear me? I'm on another laptop here. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Cool. All right. Just to sort of latch on what Remco said, is this little bit by bit. Look, and our biggest challenge right now is we can't even get true self-service to product owners and experts and people like that. We cannot even actually give them that. But saying that, because I don't want to be a doom prophet, but is it not? And actually, maybe that's the people with the AI experience. Actually, couldn't we? Shouldn't it be not put the cart before the horse and say, okay, let's give self-service, but latch LLMs onto the self-service so that the LLMs and the machine learning can actually learn what real people actually want and do, and then people start moderating it, fixing it, and then slowly that way start getting your LLMs to do a better job. Is that not maybe a better, slower way than just saying, oh, okay, let's just give everything, we're going to do everything with the LLMs, and then we get to our actually problems we've been talking about here?
I think the base challenge we face is we need one language. Every system that we have understands binary. Any employee that gets onboarded has to go through the entire dictionary for that company, be tested on it, and start to learn to speak the way it's supposed to be. Then you stand a chance. And then you've got to make sure that your databases, your systems, etc., are linked to that. Because to expect the LLM to do all the gymnastics of everybody's own definitions, etc., I think that's asking too much.
Okay, so actually data management and actually proper lineage data glossaries and things like that is still the answer. Actually, not to be a party pooper and say we've got to get that right.
Look,
Which you're not even getting right now.
Johan, I think we are moving towards things like ontologies that are machine readable, that define the constraints and go further than DDLs in terms of the expressive nature that they can control and define it with knowledge graphs and things like that. So things are coming together, and I like Remco's idea of start small and you can break these things up, especially what Endeavor is saying is break them up into agents. Each agent is specialized in performing a specific task and bring these things together. So each agent can grow in a specialized area and just get better and better, and then you bring the story together.
Okay. Yeah, that's seems to be my lesson learned for today. But I wanted to ask, actually, there is Nora who wrote a comment. We are embarking on a project to use Snowflake's Cortex. I'm very intrigued by Cortex, and I wanted to ask, have you guys used it? And is it usable for everyone, or you need a special account? Like, because I have like my personal Snowflake account. So Nora, can you say something about that?
Yeah, sure. So it is available to everyone. I must just check in the regions. So before, AI was only available in Frankfurt and the US regions, but Snowflake, I think it's not available then if your Snowflake account is in Ireland. So you.
Okay, we can figure out that. But what was your experience then? Because Cortex seems to be introducing a standard of a structured way of asking the question. Like they've introduced, I believe, a sort of a JSON structure. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, yeah. So you create the semantic rules using YAML, but you can then also provide verifiable queries. So for more complex questions that would require more complex SQL queries, you can then provide those so that the LLM can interpret it better. So we do have know of a customer in South Africa that is making use of this extensively. And as I said, we are starting actually this week to implement for another one of our customers as well. Yeah, it looks very promising. So that's on the Cortex analyst side of things. On the document AI side of things within Snowflake, you can then also make use of a RAG type approach where you can access your own unstructured files, etc., to inform the model or the question rather based on whatever is stored in those documents as well. So a Snowflake, there's a lot of activity in this space just to make it easier to leverage AI off of your data.
That's super interesting, Nora. I don't see your surname, but can you please add me on LinkedIn? I would like to follow that story. And actually, everyone, I put my LinkedIn name, surname, contact. So you're all very welcome to join me because I'm curious. And the more I see the things you guys are doing, the more I learn. So to me, it's always good.
Yeah, and Franesco, that's where your unified star schema, if you can put everything in one kind of semantic data set per se, then you wouldn't need to surely write those complex queries. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, of course, I could speak 1 more hour about that, and I will not do it. But the whole point of the writing the unified schema was exactly to accommodate not 100% of the business questions, but a good 90%, because there is a part which it doesn't solve, which is the question and answer with the users. How do you want to join your orders with your clients? Is it the sold to or the ship to? So you need to default one. And so whenever a business user has a question that is joining these two tables in a different way, the unified schema does not solve that. So it solves all the questions that where there is no ambiguity of path, basically, all the basic questions. It doesn't solve like the scoring of a machine learning model, but it solves all the normal queries that would require multiple data models otherwise. So that saves a lot of time. Again, I'm happy to accommodate that question, like to answer that question with more details somewhere else. But you see, now I'm making these presentations about LLMs, which are not exactly in my domain of knowledge, because basically I'm seeing the same, let's say in quotes, nightmare that I saw for more than 20 years happening with the human consultants, going to happen also with LLMs. So somehow my mission is to provide data, empower business users, and I wanted to do with the unified schema before, and I want to do with the LLMs today. And I believe the two things can help each other if this is what you were somehow suggesting.
Yeah, so I do actually, now that you mention, I do have a demo up, so I can actually show you Cortex Analyst quickly if you want to see it.
I mean, I don't know, Howard, you're still recording?
Yeah,
you're happy with
if
that?
everybody else is keen, we will share the recording. So if those of you need to drop off, please do. Otherwise, Nora, that would be great.
Yeah, please do it, Nora, and let's please record it if it's possible for you, because that's yeah, to see it in action is super useful.
Yeah, it's a very lightweight one. Howard, I can't
Nora,
share.
I just need to make you a presenter. 1 moment.
Okay, perfect.
How are you doing, Nora?
Yes.
I haven't seen you for a while.
I'm good, thanks, Howard. I've been busy, hence.
I wonder who hasn't.
We'll see how busy you were. Show us how busy you were.
This is actually, so to all of you, let me open it up, but you can get this up and running in 30 minutes. So this is taking then a quick start, which Snowflake provides a bunch of tutorials. And this is just showing you then one that is up and running. Okay, I'm going to share it. Okay, so there is a quick start called, if you Google getting started with Cortex Analyst, augment BI with AI. So for those of you that are familiar with Snowflake or not familiar with Snowflake, you can create apps within the platform, which is using open source Python called Streamlit. So this is a Streamlit app where we have been, just to show you, we've basically created some data, so some data sets, so nothing too fancy, so some daily revenue, etc. If you do the quick start, you'll install the same. So if you just look at the data, we've got some daily revenue sales, and then we've got a product and region dimension. And if we then set up, so just to show you, I guess, the output of it, and I do also need to bring up the YAML file. Let me just see if I've got it in here. Yeah, so I think it's this one. I must find where I've downloaded it then. Yeah, here we go. So let me just download this YAML file. So this is where we create then the that semantic layer to tell Cortex what it's looking at. And here we are then stating for revenue, which would be then your subject area. And we are giving some sort of information about what tables are there. and what columns are there. And then we are also stating which is the time dimension, what are the measures. So we say daily revenue, and what's useful is then to state what those synonyms would be. So some might call it daily revenue, others might call it sales, income, etc., and a bit of a description. So we basically trying to provide that context about what information is sitting there and what it looks like. Using this model, you can then, and just to show you then what the output would be, I'm going to just open up the Streamlit app.
Dropshipping in 2025 is als een feestje waar je te laat aankomt. De drank is op.
It's just starting up that app. Oh, and what I didn't show you then was those verified queries. So you can then state...
Yeah, at the very bottom, I remember. So basically, these are the ones that have a syntax that it can learn from, basically, right?
Yes, exactly. So in this example, then we're just going to ask a question. So it's provided some standard ones here. So if we stick that one in for each month, what was the lowest daily revenue, and on what date did that lowest revenue occur? So it then provides the results for us in a table. We can view it as a chart, so a line chart, and we can also then see what SQL query was generated. So you can then cross-check exactly what it is or how it's getting that data. A similar one would be another question, so the daily cumulative expenses in December 2023. And it will also learn from this. So if you state one town and give it as an example, it knows then if you change that town, what dimension it should then change. And again, it just gives us some information there. And we can check the SQL that is generated. So yeah, as I said, I don't know the pitfalls yet because this is obviously a really nice demo. We should know more this week in terms of what is challenging, but I'd imagine the better structured your data is, the better performance we're going to get. So that's where it is definitely important to have a good ontology and make sure we can describe what is sitting where.
Yeah, everyone is speaking about ontology, but in this case, it's just 3 tables. I don't know how you can fail that. So the thing that is interesting is this line of with the windowing function. That is really a thing that's until now never seen written by a robot, let's say. So that's quite advanced.
Yeah, with the unbounded, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's one to try, Franesco. If you're ready on Snowflake, then just check out that quick start and give it a go.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. This was unexpected and super, super useful. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for an interesting chat.
Likewise.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks, team.
And Duvo, maybe you can share with us later on about the work that you're doing in IBM. That would be quite interesting as well to see what you guys are doing. Excellent.